What's going on, everyone? It's Mike, it's John back again. And this is funny enough, the match preview slashed with deadline day transfer video. I sort of thought it would make sense to put them together because, I appreciate you guys. You see so much content online from Everton creators, and it's not about that for us. We're just making sure that we give you content that we would enjoy watching. So sticking two videos into one, meaning that you can watch both segments in one place at the right time. Here we are. So, right, let's talk about the game first of all, John. Yeah, let's talk about the game. 5 minutes on that, and then we'll move on to talking about Ernie. Everton go up against the Bournemouth side, which have started okay. They've looked fairly good at times. They've needed a bit of luck at times. They've struggled at times, but they've got a manager that I quite like. I think they play a good brand of football. They're quite expansive. Are you concerned about them coming to Goodison?
Well, we've seen what Areola could do last season with this Bournemouth side. We come into the Premier League and it was really, really good with them. Changed them round, had them playing good football, and they finished safe. Quite easily, in my opinion. For me, and I said this on the video the other night, Michael, after the Doncaster game, our Premier League season starts tomorrow because we played Tottenham, we've played Brighton, we've got a home game now against Bournemouth. So for me, the season starts tomorrow. The difference to last season is, as you quite rightly said, we were creating chances, we just couldn't score. We played okay in August last year. Sean Dyche has mentioned it as well. We didn't do too well in August last season. We're not doing too well this season in August neither, but we've had one shot on target in 2 Premier League games and we haven't scored a goal. That's what worries me, but I'm sure we're going to get onto that anyway. I think it's going to be a tough game, but it's a game. It's a game that if he plays the right players, and we've seen some of them good players the other night, put brilliant performances in, i.e. Tim and Di, if he plays them sort of players against the Bournemouth team at home at Goodison, then it's a game we should win, in my opinion. But it's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination.
No, you're right. And it sums up exactly where we are as a football team, I would argue, John. Talking about that midweek game on Tuesday, we obviously won 3-0 against Doncaster. Certain players I thought played well. I thought it was the best performance from Beto. Look, he's playing Doncaster, so I'm not going to blow smoke up any of these players' backsides for it because what we've seen in the Premier League has not been good enough. But there were signs that if you play the right way, that these players can cause problems. And Beto, I thought he was good physically. I thought he was comfortable on the ball. I thought he took his goal well. And you need to do that against any opposition. So I was happy with that. I was also happy with Tim, as you mentioned. I was also fairly happy with James Garner. I was happy with Ndiaye. I thought he did well. Would you start all of those players? Jake O'Brien, Jesper Lindström. What would you do from the Bournemouth game to the Doncaster game? What would you change?
Well, I wouldn't change much with the team that finished the game, Michael. And we've all heard what Sean Dyche said a couple of weeks ago, which we've mentioned on here. He wanted to start playing out in the back, use the midfield with the players he brought in. Apparently, he didn't have Premier League experience. Still haven't, because he didn't play them much against Tottenham or Brighton, but he brought them in against Doncaster. Listen, I'm not going to sit here. We had a few comments that we went a bit over the top with the result and the performance from the second half because it was only Doncaster. But you can only beat what's in front of you. And listen, we wanted to go through to the next round of the cup. Granted, we did that. We need a good cup run, but we wanted an improved performance, whoever that may have been against. And we got it in the second half, but we got it from the players who he's brought in who didn't have Premier League experience. And we spoke on here before. The only way you get that is by giving them Premier League games. I would have no problem starting with Jake O'Brien tomorrow or Ndiaye, because I think if he starts with them 2 players, it gives us more of a chance than beating Bournemouth than it does if he sticks with his Decore's and his Dwight McNeil's and players like that. Because for me, the team needed a shake-up. It needed fresh face. It needed fresh impetus. It needs better performance from individual players. And when you look at the players that he brought in the other night, whether it be a Carabao Cup game or a Premier League game, we had them fresher performances, if you want to call it that. Players who wanted to prove themselves, players who wanted to say to the manager, I'm going to put a performance here to play against Bournemouth on Saturday. And Jake O'Brien and Iliman Ndiaye, for me, done that. So if this manager doesn't play them tomorrow, when that team sheet comes out, questions are going to be asked, because then he's reverting back, and I've said it on here, to his tried and his trusted. There's the Correys, there's Michael Keane's, there's Dwight McNeil's. We need to change it up. We need to give the opposition something to think about. Now, if he plays Jake O'Brien, if he plays Ndiaye tomorrow, that will give Bournemouth something else to think about, because we seen Ndiaye the other night when he picked the ball up. He was direct. He was good on the ball. He's skillful. He makes space for himself. Once he's got that space, he'll look for a pass to lay it off to someone else in the midfield or try and find a forward. I hope it's Beto tomorrow. We haven't been able to do that for quite a while now. So it gives the opposition something else to think about. So if he sticks with that and he brings them players straight in, Premier League debuts, straight from the off, Jake O'Brien, Ndiaye, for me, it gives us more of a chance to get 3 points.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I'm going to give you my team based on my thoughts. Some people are going to spit their drinks out with what I'm about to say, but here we go. My team is as follows, and it is a 4-3-3 formation. Jordan Pickford in goal, Mikalenko, Jake O'Brien, Michael Keane, Seamus Coleman, Idrissa Gana Guy, James Garner, Tim Ibrahimovic, or Tim, or however you pronounce his name. Front three is Ndiaye, McNeil, and Beto. That team for me, I think Tim is the player that can play forward. James Garner can play forward. I think you've got the anchor man in Garner who can be solid in the middle and can win the ball and can pass it forward. I think you've got willing runners in Ndiaye and McNeil who will happily get forward and back quickly, defence to attack. And I think you've got Beto, who I absolutely think he's got a point to prove based on the absolute farce is the fact that Calvert-Lewin is still at Everton Football Club, but we'll go into that in a minute. John, I know your team may be slightly different because I mentioned Michael Keane. However, I think Michael Keane's been better than Tarkowski, and I've always said that you play players based on performance. And for me, Michael Keane starts over him at the minute. I'm not saying I'm happy about that. I'm not saying I'm thrilled about that, but I think Michael Keane. Without really analysing too much, I don't think he's put too much wrong over Tarkowski, who I think has been a bit sloppy. I don't think his positioning's been great. And the first game for me was he just didn't look fit. The second game he didn't look fit, and he doesn't play against Doncaster. So yeah, for me, Michael Keane starts ahead of him.
We spoke about this earlier on. We went through our teams and we were in disagreement. I've had time to think about it, and I completely agree with that team.
Yeah, you see, your boy knows.
Only because
say I'm better, John.
Yeah. You've hit the nail on the head when you're saying, listen, we would never, ever, ever in a million years thought we'd sit here and say we'd play Michael Keane over Tarkowski. Now, I know there's going to be subscribers and people who watch the channel thinking, how can you do that? You've got to pick players on form. Now, for me, you quite rightly hit the nail on the head today. Tarkowski didn't have a full pre-season because he was injured. With the performance that we've seen this season from him since the season started, looks like he's still carrying that injury because, listen, season's gone by. Tarkowski's been a man mountain for us, a man mountain. But we need to pick players on form because we need to pick some points up in this Premier League because we're bottom of the league. And I know it's only 2 games in, but we don't want to get adrift of anyone. So I agree with your team. Looking at Ndiaye, I think when you look at players like that, and we've seen them, and someone made a joke the other night when I done the little twinkle toe shuffle and stuff, but he lifts other players when you've got someone so skillful on the pitch with players around you, but it lifts the fans as well. So I totally agree. I totally agree with your Beto shout as well. I know we're going to get onto a certain Mr. Lewin, but I think if we can play the ball through the channels from the likes of Ndai, James Garner possibly. We've all seen the YouTube videos and we've seen what Beto's capable of, running the channels, getting onto the ball from behind. As you quite rightly pointed out, he scored a goal last season, running in from behind. He done it the other night. I have no problem with your team.
Excellent, there you go. And that is the match preview for Everton against Bournemouth, where Everton will win 2-1.
Yeah, 2-1.
2-1. Okay, well, let's move on to deadline day then, John. We'll talk about deadline day, and then maybe tomorrow we'll talk about, or maybe on Sunday, part of the debrief, we'll talk about the transfer window as a whole. But there were certain players that I expected to leave today, and I think two of them have. Mason Holgate, I think he's leaving, joining Sheffield Wednesday, or it looks like it, and Neil Maupay has joined Marseille. The one that hasn't gone, which I did think might have gone, is Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I thought he'd go to Brentford to replace Ivan Toney, but I don't quite know what Brentford are doing in the striking position. Chelsea had also been interested, but it does look like they've won the race to sign Victor Osimhen. So Calvert-Lewin's been an issue all summer, really. So I suppose that's not new. Are you disappointed he's still at the club, or are you glad he's at the club? Because there's going to be people that love Lewin. There's going to be people that don't like the fact he hasn't signed a new deal. So where do you sit?
I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin's played Everton in a way. You know, he's had injuries over the past 2 years. There's been a contract on the table, which I've said many, many times on the channel since Christmas. He wants more wages, in my opinion, than what he's worth. But what's more wages this day and age in the Premier League? Because they're all on too much money as far as I'm concerned. He hasn't helped himself with his wage demands. Everton agreed a fee with Newcastle a while back. His wage demands scuppered that deal. I think Everton now it's come to deadline day. I think Everton probably need to lower the valuation. They're looking for £35 million. Come January, Dominic Calvert-Lewin is able to sign a pre-contract with any club. So we lose him for nothing. Personally, I think Everton should have dropped their asking price. I think he should have dropped his wage demands for what he thinks he's actually worth, or what we think he's worth. As you've quite rightly pointed out, you're the stats man on here. 5 goals a season he averages over 8 years, and he's wanting between £100,000 and £130,000 a week. Am I right in saying that? Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
I think it's 6 goals. Sorry, I'm muting my mic.
5, 6, potato, makes no difference. Still not good enough, is it, over 8 years for someone who wants between £100,000 and £130,000 a week? So I think Everton haven't done the best of jobs to help Calvert-Lewin, or to help Everton Football Club as a whole, to get him off the books, to be able to sell him, to be able to bring somebody else in. But I don't think Dominic Calvert-Lewin's helped himself with his wage demands either. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, for me, is going to stay at Everton now. So let's talk about the transfer deadline day and how Dominic Calvert-Lewin is going to affect Everton staying, in my opinion. You're going to have an unhappy player. He hasn't looked happy for quite a while. He's not going to give 100%. I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin, after all this, if he doesn't move before 11 o'clock tonight, is actually shooting himself in the foot. Because if he, as I said to you today, there's 2 ways to go now for Calvert-Lewin if he's still at the club after 11 tonight. He either runs his bollocks off and bangs loads of goals and up until January to get that pre-contract with another club, or Everton carry on playing him and we see the Dominic Calvert-Lewin that we've seen for quite a while. He did have a little purple patch towards the end of last season. Granted, he did. but he hasn't started the season well. He didn't play well in pre-season. It looks like he's disinterested. It looks like he can't be bothered running. It looks like he doesn't have to wash his shirt for the next game because there's no sweat on it. So that's the way he could go. He can either be like that, but then no one comes in for him in January because of his attitude at Everton Football Club. He's not scoring goals, and he's still going to want that big money. Who's going to pay big money for a player like that with that attitude?
No.
Right. So if he doesn't go in January, then you've got him then, and you don't make any money on him. Granted, he didn't cost us. Was it £1 million or something, or whatever he cost us? But then where does he go? And this is the question I was going to ask you. At the end of all this saga that surrounds Dominic Calvert-Lewin, for the way he's carrying on, and granted, it's not just him, because I think Everton's asking price is a bit high for a player who hasn't got a great goal average, who's out of contract at the end of the season. I think the figure's a bit high for me. But in football terms, £35 million for a striker is probably not. But in my opinion, for him, it is. So this is what I was going to say to you. If no one comes in for him in January, he doesn't sign that pre-contract, he's out of contract next summer. Where does Dominic Calvert-Lewin actually end up?
A newly promoted team, Saudi Arabia, or he's not going to get the move he wants. That's the answer. That's the answer to you. He's not going to get the move he wants.
Saudi Arabia is the only place that'll pay the wages that he wants.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I semi think he may have been waiting for that sort of move. Rumours of Ivan Toney's wages are absolutely staggering. By the way, today, they're unbelievable amounts of money that he's going to be paid. Calvert-Lewin's probably looking at that and it's probably a little bit jealous. It depends what matters, in my opinion. This whole thing about playing in Europe and playing in Saudi, the money's in Saudi, the gravitas is in Europe. It depends what you want as a footballer. Now, you've spoken about Calvert-Lewin's mentality and what you think his mentality is. Now, I don't know. I'm not as quick to think that he may not necessarily be interested in glitz and the success of football anymore. Whereas you think he's done. You think that he's sort of almost like the Jack Wilshere, almost a Dele Alli, just doesn't appear to be bothered by football anymore. The Gareth Bale rather play golf. I don't know where Lewin is in that stake. I don't know whether he wants one big move, wants to try and prove himself in the Champions League. But the facts are, he went 24 games last season without scoring a goal. He's had significant injuries over the last 2.5 years. Everton have stood by him. And the fact that he's not prepared to sign a contract, even with, and your favourite term, a release clause, even if it was 30 million, 25 million quid, at least it secures Everton's investment in Lewin. The facts are, I think he's played an absolute blinder in sending Everton down the Swanner, and I also think that Everton have played a blinder in pricing themselves out of selling him, which is absolutely ludicrous. For me, I thought Calvert-Lewin would have left, and I honestly thought Everton would have his new striker this evening, and we haven't.
I think certain player that springs to mind for me, and there was a certain player who played Everton, and he come out smelling of roses in a way, and that was Ross Barkley. And I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin's going down the same road. Now, listen, Dominic Calvert-Lewin's got a newborn baby, which I think is probably pushing 1 now. So I don't think he's probably looking for a Saudi move just yet. But when you look at some of the players that have gone to Saudi Arabia on big wages, Michael, not saying they all are, but there's some players gone over there who are average players who can't get a Premier League move. It's made for him, that. It's made for him, that. Could he be another Dele Alli? Has he made too much money too early in his career to not be asked? Because, and there's nothing wrong with this, because Michael's done this with his boy, and I've done it with my kids. Your kids come first. In any walk of life, your kids come first. So is Calvert-Lewin looking at it now thinking, well, I've got a baby now, I'm losing interest in football, but I'm still picking 80, 90,000 pound a week up at Everton. I'll just sit on it. I'll price myself out of a move. I'll move for nothing. I'll get a big signing on fee. Then I won't be interested again. And when you look at players like that, they're not doing it for the love of football. And I spoke about this the other night on here, Michael. I'll play for Everton for nothing, mate. For absolutely nothing. But when you look at football players these days, they don't do it for the love of the sport anymore. It's being proved with Tony. In my opinion, his England career is over if he goes to Dubai. And he's only a young boy. It happened with Henderson. He stopped getting picked for England after a while. He had chances to go to other clubs, Tony. I think if he would have knocked back that move to Saudi, Chelsea possibly could have come in for him. Arsenal possibly could have come in for him. So we had choices in the Premier League, but they followed the pound signs. And listen, in football, there's nothing wrong with that because they've made enough money anyway. But I know for a fact, without going into too much detail, one of us on here could have moved for more money and done a different job for more money. We spoke about it. Money's not everything. So, money's not everything in every walk of life. Now, if the taxi firm that I work for come up to me and said, we're going to double your wages, sound like most people on here, we all want more money. Money makes the world go round. But if you're only thinking about yourself when you've got a family, it becomes a different kettle of fish. And I think that's what Dominic Calvert-Lewin's done because he's made that much money. He's not interested anymore in the job that when he set out as a youngster, it was the job he always wanted to do. He always wanted to be a footballer. That's all you'll hear from footballers. I want to be a footballer when I grow up, when you're asked as a young boy. But there's that much money in football now, and we've seen it with the likes of Dele Alli, and as Michael said before, Jack Wilshere. Their career just curtails off when you've got a certain amount in the bank. And clubs suffer for that. Clubs suffer. Everton have suffered it more than most clubs when we've had players on the books like that. A Ross Barkley, as I said, probably looking like a Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Now, granted, I did say before, Everton probably need to lower their asking fee for him, 35 million quid. But he was on the verge of signing for Newcastle. And it was his wage demands that scuppered that deal. So he hasn't helped himself. Personally, if I was the manager now, I wouldn't play him. I wouldn't play him. Me and Michael spoke earlier on when you look at the strikers that we've got at the club now. So we've got Beto, we've got Chimiti. Unfortunately, he's in plaster. And we've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who went through how many goals they're going to score if they played 30 games each. And actually, Beto come out on top in mine and Michael's opinion. If we play to his strengths. Now, that's worrying. Because another stat we went through is I think we scored 34 goals last season. Correct us if we're wrong. Then we went through how many goals we'll get off our goal scorers. And it was frightening. It was frightening. So what I'm getting to here, Dominic Calvert-Lewin hasn't thought about Everton Football Club. Everton Football Club haven't really thought about themselves with the price tag that they put on him. If he would have went, get his wages off the book, get a fee for him, even if we knock it down to 20, 25 million, we'll move on to the next part of the deadline day. Because I did say to Michael, surely the strikers in Europe who would come to Everton for £20 million on £50,000, £60,000 a week, probably score more goals than what we're going to get off an unhappy Calvert-Lewin and someone who's not interested in being at the club.
We've still got a loan. Like, we literally could have loaned a striker. I know that's, there's one that sticks out to me. I know he's injured this weekend. But, as far as I understood, Tottenham are looking to sell Richarlison. I'm not saying he'd come back. It's almost pipe dream. But there's definitely players out there that Everton could have gone for. It's only right we mention our new signing. I think it's Oriel. Mangala. He played at Nottingham Forest. He is highly thought of by Forest fans. They really like him, and they're disappointed that he's gone there. He's maybe, I don't know what's happened in pre-season, but he's now back in the Premier League for Everton. Rolls-Royce midfielder, really good ball carrier, will win the ball deep. He's strong, he's mobile, he's aggressive. He strikes me as sort of a Garner replacement. Obviously, there's the whole thing around Leon and Everton because there might be John Textor in the background, etc., etc., etc. But this is a signing that excites me, as long as it doesn't hinder Tim.
I actually think he's probably a replacement for Garner. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and slag Idrissa Gana guy off. I think he was brilliant in his first spell with us. He went to Real Madrid. He come back to Everton. I think he only went to Real Madrid. And for me, he's been good since he come back. He's not getting any younger. Are you going to get 38 games out of him? Probably not with cup games. I think this sort of midfielder that we've brought in, Mangala, fits in with the Tim mould as well, so they can play with each other. There's also been other rumours of, I'm not going to say his surname, Ernest. We're probably going to go on to him now. Michael's back. Everton were in for Ernest, whatever his name is, from Leon as well. And we thought John Textor's worked more magic. The deal then sort of went quiet and Fulham were the front runners. Then we heard an hour ago, when we're making this video, that Everton were strong favourites for him. Now Forest have come in for him. And now Everton are looking for alternatives, apparently. So it probably looks like it's a deal that's not going to be done. Michael, more than me, thinks we need a winger, and he was the winger. So we're talking to alternatives now. Apparently, whether we are, I don't know. I was just going to ask Michael, because we spoke about it earlier on, if we don't get anyone else in apart from Mangala, is that enough?
Maybe, just. And I think we finished about 17th, 16th, 15th, that sort of position. Everton probably will move on to alternatives. I think Ernie may well happen because of the whole Leon connection. Leon have also signed an under-21 Everton player that they've signed today as well. So, look, I'm not in the camp of I don't think Ernie won't happen. I think Ernie may well happen. However, the counter argument to that is there is other options available. One of those being Reece Nelson from Arsenal, who is a young winger. We saw him come on last season and change the game. They ended up winning 3-2 from being 2-0 down. Young winger there. There is wingers available. There's Carney Chukwuemeka from Chelsea. I think he's a winger. He is available. There's definitely players. This is all kicked off because Newcastle wants Ilanga from Forest, and Forest have now had to jump in and try and secure this winger. Now, we're all missing and forgetting a certain winger that Everton apparently have had talks with over and over again. They've spoken to time and time again, blah, 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 blah. And I don't know whether this would happen or wouldn't happen. But if Everton had 30 million euros to splash out on a winger from Lyon, which is what the rumour was, it was rumoured that it would be a proper deal, not a loan, then what's the chances Wilfried Gnonto joins Everton this evening, John? After all of this stuff, there's definitely alternatives. He's one we've spoken to. We know he wants to move to Everton.
I think it's Leeds playing hardball with that, and I think we've upset the Leeds camp many times over the last 18 months regarding Gnonto. I don't see Everton playing ball. Leeds playing ball with Everton this late in the window. I think if Gnonto was going to happen, it would have happened well before now. So I don't think it happens in this window. Possibly it happens in January. Depends on where we are. Depends on if the new owners come into the club and we've got a bit of money to spend. There's a winger out there who's just left Galatasaray, Wilf Sahar. Now, If you're prepared to pay £25 million on a winger from Lyon, then just go and get Wilf Sahar because he's leaving Galatasaray, who knows the Premier League. I'm not saying pay 25 million quid for him, but Wilf Sahar is one of them players who would easily fit into the mould with Ndiaye, with maybe Jack Harrison, with maybe Lindstrom, players like that. You know, midfielders that knit together and that excite the fans and make things happen. And we've spoke about Wilf Sahar on here for the last probably 2 years, that I wouldn't mind him at the club. I'd still go for him now. I would still bring someone like that who's direct, good on the ball, can get the ball in the box, and is capable more often than not of scoring an absolute worldie. Cuts in from the wing, runs at the midfield when he cuts in and takes them on, glides past players that excite us, and we've got one at the club now. But we need more, because we're going to need more goals from that midfield, Michael, because we're going to have absolutely zilch up front if we don't bring a striker in.
Yeah, I was just, the reason why I froze is I come up the app that we use just to have a look if there was any, news on Twitter, anything popped up, and don't think there's anything new to suggest that Everton have gone after anyone. They've not been named yet, other than Ernie, who we already know that there is an agreement in place with Lyon, but we don't know about everything else behind the scenes. We know that there's 2 other teams that are interested, blah, 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 blah. We'll obviously go into the analysis of this, the full transfer window, on one of the other days. Everton sign a winger, don't know who it is, but just say we sign a pacey winger who's got the ability to beat a person and score a goal. And we've bought in Mangala, and we've signed all the players we have already, which will go into more depth. Out of 10, as of right now, what would you say the number is?
Well, see, you asked me this question the week before we brought any more players in by the end of the transfer window, and I said a 7.
Yeah.
And you brought that up to me today. And I look at it and I think it'd still be a 7 if we'd see more of these players from the manager. So if the manager keeps playing them and goes with O'Brien and goes with Ndiaye, I'm on the fence with Lindstrom at the minute. But players like that who can excite the fans, and maybe if we bring what we brought Mangala in, if he's going to play or what have you, and if we get another winger in, then I'd still stick to a 7. Only because we need a striker, in my opinion, Michael. For me, we're going for a winger, and I know you've been. I won't go as far as saying obsessed with getting a winger in, because I can see what you mean about a pacey winger. We haven't really got pacey wingers, so I can see where you're coming from. But we have Lindstrom, who's yet to prove himself because he hasn't had much game time. He's brought Harrison back, which was a waste of a loan, in my opinion. We've got McNeil, who's one of his tried and trusted. So we have wingers. They're possibly not good enough, but it's another winger. We've wasted a loan on Jack Harrison, in my opinion. We'll probably get shot down in the comments for that. Midfield, you look at James Garner, we've brought Mangala, we've brought Tim in, you've got Takora, you've got Garner Guy. So we've got enough in the middle there. At the end of the transfer window deadline day, and you know this, I want a striker. I want a striker who can just hit us 8, 9, 10 goals a season, because the strikers who we've got an unhappy one, as I said before. Better, we need to play more. We've got one in plaster. We haven't got a striker who's getting us double figures.
No.
So that's what I want. I'm not saying the midfield's good enough, but I think Mangala, I haven't seen much of him, but Tim and Ndiaye improve us. They improve us in the middle. So you've got to be able to play with the midfield and the forwards to create chances to score them goals, what win you games. The unfortunate thing is we haven't got the strikers, in my opinion, to score enough goals. So I want a striker.
Okay, well, I don't disagree, and I think we will leave it there, guys. We will. If there's any major updates, then yeah, we might jump on another video. But I mean, at this point, I don't think there is, and I think we signed a winger and we signed a centre midfielder already. I think that's probably us done. Everton have made, I think it's 7 or 8 signings this summer, so it's not been as quiet as people maybe thought it would be. But yeah, that glaring issue at the top for me has been there all summer. I've called it since day one of the summer.
I don't think it's been quiet, Michael. I think we've had a decent window. I do. We've got to see the
club. If you remember Kevin Burwell, his last comment, I think like one of the things that he puts out on the emails and things for season ticket holder, he said he was expecting a quiet summer, and if anything, I think it's been fairly busy.
Yeah, it has. Totally agree, and I think the players we've brought in, again, I'll say it again, not going to sit here and have a pop at them, but I need to see more from Lindstrom. But the other players that we've brought in, O'Brien and Dye and Tim, obviously Mangala, don't know much of him. I know he played for Forest, don't follow them. It improves us. No end. It improves us, because me and you spoke the other night, Michael, after the Doncaster game. When was the last time we had a player like Ndai? Been a long time. So he does get people excited. He gets the players around him excited. He gets bums off seats. We can sit there and go, wow, when he does the little turns and all that. But we've got to play them. The manager's got to play them in the right system. He's got to play the right tactics. He's got to pick the right team. Because I tell you now, with the players we've brought in, if he plays them more often than not, with the right tactics and the right team selection and the right substitutions, and how many times have we said that on here, we win more games than not. So it's down to the manager now. Now he's brought them players in. Apparently, I say it again, he wants to change the way we play. So if he utilises them players, the exciting players that he's brought in, then we'll be okay. But if he sticks with his Decores and his Dwight McNeils and his Michael Keanes and players like that, not having a pop at Michael Keane on this video because I think he's better than Tarky. But in the long run, we want to see these new players integrated into the team to get Premier League experience, to excite the crowd, to get the players around them a lift. You know yourself, Michael, when you've got a player like someone like Ndai, and you're playing with a player like that, and he does things that no other player in the Everton squad or the Everton team can do. You look at him and you think, wow. And it gives you the lift. It excites you. It gets you going. It gets you up for the game. Apparently, he's unbelievable in training. Unbelievable in training. I said to Jake O'Brien the other day, I said, you can't get near him in training. Can't get near him in training. You can't get near him. He's that skillful. Never seen nothing like it. So if they're seeing it, why isn't the manager? He has to start tomorrow. He has to start with these exciting players to give the crowd a lift. When that team sheet comes out tomorrow at 2 o'clock, I want to see O'Brien on it. I want to see Ndai on it. And Beto before Calvert-Lewin, if I can go that far. And we'll be happy because it'll give us all a lift. Not another team sheet like Brighton where we went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. We will leave you to it. Enjoy the rest of deadline day. This video will be going out with literally no editing. And apologies, I've been in and out. My little boy's stopping away this weekend, so I just wanted to say goodbye to him and all the general stuff. So, right, have a lovely weekend. Enjoy the game. Up the Toffees, and deadline day is going to be a bit of a stinker in the end, no doubt. See you soon. Peace.